and allow me to share with you some of the ideas I have just put together for this session in particular, considering an important fact. I was the first commentator, appeared on Al Jazeera English on 7th of October in the morning, where the whole event had started. And I remember in one of those interventions, normally I answered the question of the presenters, but I put a question myself to me and to the viewers, where I said, would it be possible to avoid this incident and to avoid any ramification of that incident? And again, I put this question again: was it possible to avoid this war and what happened on 7th of October? I'll be sharing with you my answer now. I also want to highlight the second level of the war, which is not happening using the armed forces. The other war, which I call it the war of narrative, war of narratives. And that is something we'll share with you some of the conclusion I have reached to. And the third element I will be highlighting is why the ceasefire was late, why we have to wait 2 years until we get to a ceasefire or end of the war. And finally, where are we heading? Those are the 4 subtitles I will be just trying to highlight in my answer. This war could be avoided 100%. I'm talking about this considering the fact I'm a historian by education, I'm a political scientist, and I are personal by practitioner and author. If you go back to the Middle East post-Arab uprising, there was a major shift on the Palestinian cause. There is sort of ignoring, trying to not to see anything about Palestinian cause. What is happening at that time, and the focus on the ramification of Arab uprising had made a clear conclusion that Palestinian cause is about to be forgotten. Considering also the fact that the Israeli government, the Israeli right-wing government led by Netanyahu, has focused on 2 major priorities. Number 1 is to normalize or to move on the normalization process without any kind of acknowledgement to the Palestinian rights. And the second thing is creating a new status quo on both West Bank and Gaza. That status quo should lead to more control of Israel, even on what has been called the outcome of Oslo Agreement. The more we get close to 2023, Israeli government are creating more realities on the ground, but mostly politically and in the level of the narrative, and creating more problems to the Palestinian Authority. Now, these are a reality we're developing, and the region and the world was busy of the ramification of Arab uprising. What's happening? The falling of regimes like Egypt, what's happening in Libya, Syria conflict. And all of this basically made the Arab-Israeli conflict or the Palestinian cause actually forgotten. There was a systematic policies by the Israeli government to basically attack the Al-Aqsa Mosque, create a status quo in Jerusalem. Of course, President Trump did help them of recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the Israeli state, which is basically did make Israelis believe that they can have more achievements, especially after Abraham Accord. And the focus was clear that the coalition of the government will push internally. Netanyahu, in his relation with the United States, will push externally. and trying to get the maximum of what they think that historical rights of the Jewish people in Israel. Now, most of the Arab countries, they had made it clear pre-7th of October that things are moving in the wrong direction. Without recognizing the Palestinian rights and stop all of the systematic policies in West Bank and the pressure on Gaza, things will not maintain. Israeli government did not listen to any of those messages, ignored them, and actually they pushed to the max by attacking the Al-Aqsa Mosque more than once, trying to create sort of narrative about what's happening in Al-Aqsa Mosque, trying to say that it will be under complete sovereignty of Israel, creating the status quo about the Hashemite guardians of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Christian in the church in Jerusalem, which was basically according to the arrangement, it was under the Hashemites of Jordan. So there was an indication that something is coming. Things cannot be sustained like this. Israelis cannot move ignoring the Palestinian rights. All of it's being done under a security arrangement. Abraham Accord has been done under a security arrangement and the threat of Iran. Israeli government tried to create a coalition called anti-Iranian coalition, trying to say that is the main reason for all of this. The threat is Iran and its network, or the more we weaken Iran, we can do everything we want. So those are indicators. If you put them together, this will lead you to see that something is happening. We don't know what is it. We don't know what is the nature of it, how much is big or small, but things were moving toward a sort of uncertainty for sure. And everyone was actually, if you go to the statement by different politicians, they were making a clear message that things cannot continue like this. We are moving in the wrong direction. Anyway, the world wakes up 6:30 in the morning, 7th of October, on what happened. Now, of course, here, one can say, if Israel was listening to all of those calls from different countries, from Europeans even, that you need to recognize the Palestinian rights, you need to stop pressuring the Palestinians, you need to be engaged in a process, peace process, even under Oslo agreement. All of this has been dismissed by the Israelis. So 7th of October happened. We found ourselves in front of two main narratives. One narrative says that 7th of October is not the main date, the main history. The main date and history is 1948. It's the occupation. It is the discrimination. It's the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian. So 7th of October is a one milestone, full stop. The other narrative, which is basically Israelis sold to the world, that the whole thing has started from 7th of October. As the situation pre 7th of October was beautiful, was fantastic. Palestinians are living in a very amazing circumstances. Of course, Israel has presented its narrative considering three main elements. One, what happened is what's so-called a 9/11 of Israel. And number two, Israel will fight regardless any country of the world and will make sure that Gaza will not become any threat to Israelis. And number three, the dehumanization of the Palestinians in Gaza by calling them the human animals. Those three elements together have shaped the Israeli actions since the mid-day of 7th of October. And based on that, Netanyahu has declared the state of the war against Gaza. Now, Of course, you talk about groups, resistance, armed groups, whatever you can call them. Um, if you look in the context of what's happening, Gaza is an occupied land under the international law. It has been considered within the legislation 242 and the 338 by United Nations as occupied land by the Israelis, and these two pieces of the so-called historical Palestine should be returned and controlled and run by the Palestinian Authority, which was centered in West Bank. In West Bank, yes. So the world did not want to recognize that Gaza was occupied. They were saying, Gaza was in a good shape, forgetting the fact that there were more than 5 cross borders between Gaza and Israel and Egypt, and all of them controlled by the Israelis. And in fact, Israeli government was waging a war of calories against the Palestinians in Gaza. They were limiting the trucks which can enter to Gaza with the food, and say the men cannot eat more than 1,200 or less calories a day, and the woman should not, the woman 1,000, sorry, and the men or male should not exceed 105,000. And that basically, I call it unseen war on the Palestinians. Everyone knows about it. It was written, published by the Israeli media, but no one considered it unusual. And Gaza was receiving a daily around 500 trucks to basically make 2.4 Palestinians alive, or keep them alive in Gaza. That wasn't a normal situation to the Palestinians in Gaza. So Israel decided to wage the war on Gaza by dehumanizing the Palestinian and sell a narrative that what happened on those Israeli cities or settlements, they were basically killing, beheading, all of those lies, which are proved to be lies. And interestingly, the person who was basically spreading this word now is in jail in the United States because of he was acting something in a sexual manner against a child in the United States. So there are something wrong was happening in terms of spreading the word that Hamas is like Al-Qaeda. So as the American waged war against Al-Qaeda, Israel has the right to wage the war against Hamas, as there is no occupation, as there is no political process was going on where Israel recognized that Gaza is an occupied land by itself. So the war goes on. The world has basically bought the narrative of Israelis. Politicians, civil society, media in the world, they have seen the killing, the massacres, the ongoing systematic policies by the Israelis to destroy Gaza. And basically killing around 76,000 people, and more than 10,000 now under rubble, and more than 200,000 people are injured. And basically destroying more than 85% of Gaza. More than 700,000 of the Palestinians in Gaza, they have no education for 2 years, or actually with a low percentage, they will have sort of a home education. We're basically creating an image of destruction, which remind us of the Second World War. Now, there are 3 milestones in this war. I think it's important to highlight so you can understand why this war basically continued like this. In May 2024, according to the Israeli assessment, Israel was winning the war, have achieved most of its own purposes, and there was an offer to release all hostages and ending the war. Instead of doing this, Israel went and killed Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah leader, and Ismail Haniyeh in Iran, and engage on a war with Iran and continue the war. That was a message that Israeli government does not want in the war, and continued of killing the Palestinian and systematically destroy Gaza. That was an important phase, because basically after this phase, there was level of disappointment. Still international community, Europe, the United States, still they believe on the Israeli narrative. They still think that the problem is the Palestinians, Hamas, resistance movement, Palestinian and Gaza, all of this. And then Israel started to talk about the day after. At that time, Netanyahu has put around 4 projects for the day after. None of them acknowledging the right of the Palestinians. Only the right for security for Israel. And Palestinians, they can go to the hell. So that's what happened the day after. Projects have failed. Netanyahu have suggested by end of the war around 7 projects, and all of them have failed. Because even the friends of Israel, they rejected to be involved in any project for the day after, as long as this destruction has happened. So who will take care of it? Who will be cleaning the mess created by the Israelis? And all of the discussion between April, May 2024 until January 2025 about how to end the war. In 2025, in January, there was another proposal. There was a ceasefire. Some of the hostages being released. However, the Israeli government, Netanyahu's government, have decided to go back to the war and end the ceasefire. But not only that, they started a new policy with the main title, starvation. We're basically banning as much as they can entering any food to Gazans. I'm sure all of you saw the images were coming from Gaza. More than 500 people plus were killed because of starvation. And we have thousands of kids and young people, they have now diseases and sickness because of this kind of starvation. At that stage, Israel has started to lose the international support, which makes me believe that Israel made what's being called the historical mistake. Because Israeli power and the presence relies in reality on its image in Europe and the United States. And the more images were coming from Gaza about the destruction, the killing, around 20,000 children were killed, around something about this number or less women. So all of these numbers have made it clear that Israeli government is not responding to what happened on 7th of October. They have an agenda, especially after summer 2024, more military activities started in West Bank. And more than 1,018 gates were separating Palestinian villages in West Bank has been created, where the people cannot move between city to the city because there are gates controlled by the Israeli armed forces. So the situation in West Bank was also terrible, and it was very bad. People, they cannot even go to their work or go to school because they don't know how long it will take them and what will happen to them. Now, the starting of 2025, there is a new dynamic, which is what's coming from Washington. Trump has become the president. Netanyahu was waiting for that moment because he was basically investing on the Republicans and in particular in Trump as a president. And he was thinking that as Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, he will give him a green light to do whatever he wants in Gaza, in West Bank, and no one can stop Trump. another miscalculation. Because Trump have realized it gradually, but slowly as well, that what Israel is what Netanyahu is telling him is actually has no right, no truth in it. And he started listening to regional players, where he also sent his envoy for hostages, Adam Buller, to meet Hamas leadership, and he talked to them twice in Doha, and they explained to him that, you know, this is what we want. We need a Palestinian state. We need to end the war. We need. So it was a very, as being described, a very civilized discussion. And then I think the role of Turkey, role of Qatar, and other mediators started to push strongly against the narrative of the Israel and make it clear that there is a regional consequence of this war. If you don't see it, it will be an earthquake, a real earthquake to all of us. So you need to play a role as the United States. Since January 2025, there was a lot of pressure to get a ceasefire. All of those failed until we get to the war in Iran on June 2025, where Israel started what called, you know, the cutting the head of the snake, which basically attacking Iran and then asking United States to help to attack 3 nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Politically speaking, January 2025, the Israeli loss has been doubled or threatened, doubled. Palestinians, they were losing their own people, destruction going on, but at the same time, the acknowledgement of their rights was going up to the sky. More recognition of the Palestinian state. 160 states now in the world recognize the Palestinian state. More people are, more people acknowledge that what's happening in Gaza is a war crime, is a genocide. The International Court has already decided. A report from the United Nations described it as a genocide. So Israel basically was facing a serious image issue globally, which is basically convince the Americans that this war should stop. And Trump did explain this in many times, that Israel cannot fight the whole world. Israel should stop this war, because he started to understood that, you know, there's no justification for what happened in Gaza. And the more images coming from Gaza, the more the genocidal action is becoming obvious to the world, even in the United States. And I think the September United Nations meeting and what happened to the Prime Minister of Israel when people left the session. And interestingly, after his meeting, he went to meet influencers on social media and telling them, you are the major important people to help Israel to maintain its image, and paid them $7,000. And that was a shift of what is happening. Is this Israel, the friend of the West? Do they need to buy people and pay them $7,000 to say something good about Israel? Let me tell you just this a funny story. One of those influencers, she came to Israel and she took a photo of herself, wearing 2 pieces in one of the streets in Israel, and say under that say, this is the only place in the Middle East you can wear this. And if you see the people's comments, you will laugh until the end of the day. People say, is this the only thing you look at it? Is it so imagine this is where Israel get itself with this war. We are getting closer to after the United Nations, it becomes clear to the United States that the war has no result and the war should stop. And I think there was more effort done by the mediators until we get the ceasefire. Now, this ceasefire was on the table at least 14 months before. There was no change on it. But again, it was Netanyahu's government and his own personal understanding where things should be heading. He did it basically. He was able to take this war to around 2 years basically. Now, that is the ceasefire has started. It was clear. There was a clear roadmap. Release the hostages together, and then the bodies, and then number two, we go to the security arrangement, disarmament of Hamas. The day after will be, under international forces, or actually Palestinian. All of this now is becoming the major points of the debate. Things are as I see it today. First of all, it becomes obvious the Palestinian issue is a hot potato, is an important issue now globally. And if there is no solution for this, there will be no peace in the region, no stability. This ceasefire plan should succeed. And interestingly, Trump has said yesterday, in one of the capitals in Asia he's visiting now, he said everything about politics in the United States was about Israel. If you say something bad about Israel, you will be out of politics in the United States. And now, quote unquote, he say, if you say something good about Israel now, you will be out of politics. That was a major shift of public opinion, where now the United States, with its own business community, wanted to buy TikTok with a $14 billion to control the narrative against Israel. Imagine, just to control the narrative, you have to spend $14 billion. This war on Gaza has costed the United States $30 billion. Israel more than $65 billion. Of course, the Palestinians, you talk about maybe more than 150 or more to rebuild Gaza. As far as the ceasefire progress, there is a new dimension entered the scene, which is the Israeli election, which will be in early 2026. And 15th of November, there will be an election within the Likud party, where Netanyahu wants basically to renew his leadership in the party so he can go to the elections. So my hunch that all of his statement now about the ceasefire has to deal with an elections button. He wants to explain, he wants to assure his base that he's still the leader who will end Hamas in Gaza. Of course, he doesn't make things easy on the Palestinian people. They're still suffering. But the only thing now, there is no, I call it, we moved from the war to the state of the war. With the state of the war, which means you make life, the people's life difficult, but there is no, attacks, serious attack and killing people directly. They are suffering, but not necessarily killed in the same spot. I think the region is becoming less secure. Of course, there is countries who believe that Hamas should be removed. Arab and Muslim countries, they agree with Israeli opinion. They have issue with political Islam. This is not new. This is since Arab uprising. Those countries, they share with Israel the same opinion, and they think that Israel should end the story of Hamas 100%. So far, Israel has failed to do so. And the images were telling us about how much they were able to create some stability. Of course, because Israel has failed on all projects for the day after, they are creating a new status quo in Gaza, which is militias. Now we have 4 militia in Gaza created by the Israelis. I'll finish with this. For main militias that to force basically Hamas, to weaken Hamas in Gaza and make it difficult to have stability in Gaza. I think there is a real concern. There are challenges ahead, the rebuilding Gaza, because there are a lot of preconditions. Some countries, they don't want to participate on rebuilding Gaza without ending the disarmament of Hamas. Some of the countries believe that Israel should pay for that because they destroy Gaza. So these are issues likely to be on the table for a long time. The only thing I think is from the Palestinian perspective, that the two wars against them is a real defeat to the Israelis. They failed to change to ethnic cleansing Gaza. Palestinians remain in Gaza. They failed to end the all resistance movements. They're still capable. And thirdly, the image of Israel has been, I would say, changed in a very bad manner, which will cost Israel a lot for the future. I think this war have a short-term ramification, which has to deal with maybe talking about normalization with Israel, maybe what will happen the day after. But the long term, likely to be more complicated, will change the whole region in terms of alliances, in terms of political stability of the governments and regimes, because the level of security hand used against people likely to be, I would say, confronted by people one day, because the pressure on people was absolutely strong. I'll end with that. I'm happy to receive some question if you want me to highlight. Thank you so much, President.
Thank you, Professor. That was certainly exceptionally, what shall I say, audience-friendly in terms of the way you explained, despite the complexities. And you have drawn attention to most of the important factors, and some of the factors you drew attention to are not well known. Now let us have the Q&A, and I believe Mr. Hammadurrahman has graciously accepted to moderate it.
Yes, sir. We will now move on to Q&A session. Audience can post their questions in the chat box, or else you can raise your hand and ask some questions.
Mr. Fabian, if you allow me, may I ask a question?
Please.
Thank you very much, Professor Mahjoob Zewiri, for your
My
excellent
pleasure.
discussion. Thank you very much. I have tried to understand this specific ceasefire, and as you have also mentioned, there are so many uniqueness. I'm trying to understand from you, how do you evaluate the future of a two-state solution and its viability after this ceasefire? What Israel and the U.S. administration, in the beginning, I sense, were so much intent to destroy the viability of two-state solution and to impose what they call as the Abraham Accord, or to solve the situation in a way that eventually the viability of a Palestinian state is almost impossible. What I feel, you could explain it better, that I still see a meager chance, if it is, that there is a possibility of two-state solution, and also with the intervention of some international actors, as they have joined, if they join, for example, some international stabilization forces, if they are allowed to join. In this way, the ceasefire should be seen diplomatically, at least, a breakthrough for Palestinian challenge. Because I was very concerned, and I have been so a pessimist person about the viability of Palestinian state. And during this crisis, we were completely thinking that it is over because only West Bank will be remaining, and West Bank is already under a massive assault of settlements. So maybe even this part of territory is also we are going to lose it. So I would like to understand from you also. Thank you very much.
Yes. Pleasure. Well, I think Israel, that's one of the points I have raised. It's about creating a status quo. Israel was trying since 1996, to be honest, since Netanyahu became the prime minister, now more than 20 years. He was trying to create a status quo against the whole matter of a two-state solution. He does not believe in that, and he believes in Jewish state as he always repeated that. And when the discussion about when they talk about this two-state solutions, he played it when he was supporting this, Hamas has been repeatedly reported, status quo in Gaza and support sort of governance of Gaza under Hamas. It wasn't because he likes Palestinians, because he wants to create a division between West Bank and Gaza, and because he was in a favor of keeping the two, I would say, bodies in a confrontational manner. But of course, for long term, the two-state solution is becoming weak because Israel are occupying more lands. Let me remind you, when Oslo Agreement was signed, there was 99 settlements in West Bank. Now more than 1,000 settlements in West Bank. So you can imagine the realities which has been created on West Bank. I think two-state solution is facing real threats because of the status quo Israel is creating. The current administration in Washington does not fully, completely engage with two-state solution. I think they have added to the documents, to the agreement, at Article 20 or 21, because I believe pressure from the mediators and from the international community that two-state solution has been approved by the world, so you cannot ignore it. But do I think that Washington is sincere completely? I don't think so. I think Trump is following what I call it a buying time strategy. He wanted to end the war. He wanted to help Israel to regain their image. He wanted to basically have a success because he's failing on the ending the war in Ukraine. He's not helping, China is not helping him to create a real change on American economy. He's failing because the cost of life is becoming higher to the Americans. So the only place where he can make a real success is actually Gaza. So that's what he's doing now. So the two-state solution is facing real threat. And I think Israelis would be also one of the losers, because the more there is no central body, according to the Oslo Agreement, according to the 1967 borders, Israeli security will be threatened more and more. I think, and it's a miscalculation to assume that they can force stability by power. It will not survive.
There are some questions in the chat box.
Yeah.
So the question, can I read it out for you, or you can? Hello, sir. As you mentioned, the incident of the social media influencer. So in this context, how do you see the future of Israeli-European culture right in between an Arab culture? Is there any possibility of normalization of cultural ties between Israel and West Asian countries? Also, how do you see the future of Hamas in Palestine?
So the question about what, Israel, I wasn't able to hear it. Between Israel and normalization?
Yes, the first question was, is there any possibility of normalization of cultural ties between Israel and West Asian countries?
West nations?
West Asian countries or Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah, okay, sorry, yeah, okay. To be honest, I'm not sure, any project of normalization now, it will be costly on governments. Without having a very clear roadmap to the situation in Gaza and to the Palestinian cause and the two-state solutions, and normalization will be weakened. Give you example. There is a Wadi Arabi agreement between Israel and Jordan. There is another agreement between Egypt and Israel. There was no impact on people. People, it's between governments. These things cannot make peace survive. They can control people, but they cannot make peace real. And even, any kind of normalization will be on the level of politicians or governments. But this is not a real peace. Peace, when people, they feel that they are sharing, they are developing, there is a prosperity, there is stability. But this never happened. And if there is a continuation on that path, will not happen. So I'm not sure that, Western nation or Arab countries will be engaging on the level of society with any normalization with Israel. The governments could go, but I think those governments are wise. They will not do it. They will take their time before doing it. Especially with this narrative about Israel expanding, from Mediterranean to Dijla Road, and so there is a lot of ideology which complicated the whole issue of normalization. Hamas is part of the Palestinian people. Who has the number? Who has the data? How many of those people? Where are they? They are part of the Palestinian nation. So they will continue their life as part of the Palestinians. They have, according to what they say, they are not interested to be part of the politics. They don't want to be part, even governing Gaza. They are happy to help and willing to collaborate with others. But I think they will continue, like Fatah, like other factions of the Palestinian. They will continue. They are part of the Palestinian people. They may, take, I would say, step back just to not to play any leadership role, but they will still important player within Palestinian political map. It's unlikely to see them disappear in any scenario, but they will, I think they may decide in what capacity they want to be part of the future of the Palestinian cause. At the end of the day, according to their narrative, this is their land, which is obviously right. This is their land, this is their own future for their own people. So, they will remain as they promised their people. And interesting, by the way, they in recent time they send a clear message to the United States that we want state stability like other people. Why you don't acknowledge that? So that itself a message to the world that the more you ignore people who are more pragmatic in politics, the more you will delay peacing and the stability.
There was another question. Do you see any role for India in the Gaza ceasefire? And Ambassador is also with us, so both of you can.
Well, I just say one sentence. Every country can play a role. I mean, peace and stability require a lot of effort. And every country has its own alliance network. Every country, peace is good for everyone. Stability is good for everyone. War is bad for everyone. I think India can play a role. India has a relation with Israel. India also understand the Palestinian cause very well. They have a good ties with Arab countries, with the important countries, with the mediators like Qatar, like Egypt. Of course, every country with goodwill, they can play a positive role on promoting peace and stability for the sake of everyone.
Ambassador, sir, can you shed some light on this also? Do you see any role for India in the Gaza ceasefire?
Thank you. There is obviously much scope for India to intervene from a humanitarian point of view. India can and India should contribute towards rehabilitation, restoration of the infrastructure, and later, when the situation is right, for reconstruction. And I would also say it is true that India has contributed a certain amount of money earlier, but there is need to contribute more from government of India. Now, here I want to make an additional point. So many people in India want to contribute. I mean, the civil society. Now, the best way that can be mobilized is for the Palestinian embassy, with the technical permission of the Ministry of External Affairs, to open a bank account where Indian citizens who are desirous can contribute. So I think there is a lot of scope, and let us hope that Indian government and the Indian civil society will avail of that scope.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions, but we are running short of time. So do you allow to take some more questions?
Yeah, please go ahead. We have two minutes. We'll take them.
Okay. So these are two questions in the chat box. I'll read out both of them. The act of ceasefire brought together important representations from the region. How much of it can we expect from them to have an active representation in Gaza, especially with Israel already declaring that they won't tolerate Turkey forces within Gaza? How can the representatives become active forces rather than just a signatory member? Another question.
Yes. Yeah.
Can we say that despite global outrage, the transnational activism and transnational public sphere needs to be revisited for their substantial ineffectiveness in a live stream genocide?
Just quickly, I think the major players, the mediators, which is Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt, they are putting a lot of investment to keep this ceasefire. And I think also Trump is agreeing with them on that. Again, Netanyahu is trying to complicate the matter, considering the fact that there is an internal election in the Likud party and then elections. So he's rejecting the role of Turkey, he's rejecting the role of Qatar. But I think this is for short term. He will accept sort of at the end of the day. Turkey was playing an important role in Afghanistan with NATO, so it's not a new to international community to accept the role of Turkey in such arrangements. But again, I think these are the games that Netanyahu has played for nearly 2 years to delay ending the war for his political future and to avoid the corruption cases against him. I think. The more he delays this, the more the gap between Israel and the United States will widen. I think there is now a new narrative that Netanyahu should listen, otherwise Israel will lose the major alliance in the world. Israeli government is becoming a burden on a lot of governments in the West. They cannot defend them anymore, and they are causing them internal problems because those governments are undermining their people's rights to protect Israel. And this creates a new dynamic within Europe and the United States. So for that reason, I think we may see more pressure on Israel to be engaged more with accepting those forces from Azerbaijan, Turkey, Malaysia, I think, and Egypt, and accept the humanitarian role of Qatar and Gaza. But again, the support to Gaza needs a lot of support globally. And I think the more international community pressure Israel, the best conclusions or outcome we will have.
Okay, thank you for these insightful answers. Now I would invite the chair of the session, Ambassador KP Fabian, for his closing reflection.
Thank you. Frankly, I do not know how long the internet facility will last. So I will make a few remarks, but before that, I propose that we give a big hand to the distinguished speaker.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now coming to the points. Netanyahu gave a definition of terrorism. That was in a book, Terrorism, How the West Can Win. And this was accepted at a conference in 1979 held in Jerusalem. Let me read it out. Terrorism is the deliberate and systematic murder, maiming, and menacing of the innocent to inspire fear for political ends. I agree entirely with this definition, and therefore I conclude that the state of Israel has been indulging in terrorism. Netanyahu's definition fits entirely with what he has been doing. Point number 2. We have talked about the two-state solution. Morally, that is the right thing to do. But is it politically possible? I do not know, and I doubt it. Why? Because it's in the liquid, the ruling party's manifesto, that there shall not be a Palestinian state. Third point. This doesn't mean that it can never happen. I'm just giving you the serious obstacles in the way. Third point, America's responsibility. It is America's weapons, it is America's technology, it's America's diplomatic protection that have enabled Netanyahu to commit this genocide. Now, you might wonder, why is it that no Indian doctors have been present in Gaza? We see doctors from Egypt, from the United States, from the UK, and elsewhere. Why, how come there are no Indian doctors? And this reminds me, way back, I was in Baghdad, and this was after the liberation of Kuwait, and I was staying with our ambassador, and I went to the United Nations office there, and there was a group of young Italians, boys and girls, staging in India we call it a dharna, a sit-in. Why?
Yep.
Against the sanctions. Now, my question is, how come that we have not seen that demonstration of moral outrage in India as we have seen in the West, Columbia, Harvard, UK, King's College, Australia, and elsewhere? Now, this is something for the Indian youth to introspect, but let me make one point. An honorable judge in Bombay said, why are you interested in Palestine? Why don't you look after, the problems here? Well, only thing is that the honorable judge was forgetting Vasudevaiga Kudumbakam. The whole world is one family, an essential part of India's values. Dear friends, thank you so much, and congratulations to the International Freedom and Dialogue Foundation.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For the last 1 minute, I would invite the Director of International Dialogue and Diplomacy Foundation, Dr. Omer Enes, is Assistant Professor in Yildirim Bayezid University, Turkey, for vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, first of all, to our distinguished scholar and speaker, Professor Zewiri, who has always been very kind to our center. I'm very glad that he had previously been with us last year for another talk. And I really wish to have him again and again, both on Zoom and physically in Delhi some incoming months. And also I would like to thank Ambassador KP Fabian, one of the most distinguished voices on India's diplomacy and politics, and a passionate sympathizer of Palestinian issues in India, who has a deep understanding of the people and society and politics of our region. And I also would like to thank all the audiences and students, researchers who are studying India and West Asia and West Asian issues in India. And on behalf of IDDF, our foundation, I would like to say that I completely agree with this point that the Palestinian issue has become one of the most complicated international affair and has become a textbook example for IR students and scholars, where all the normative theories have been sidelined, where all the ideals have been sidelined. So scholars and academia are finding it difficult to understand and explain both in theoretical and as well as in normative and moralist perspectives. So it has become a burden on our emotions and on our humanity. So when we study Palestinian issue, we have to engage with Palestinian issue in all senses, and that is why the response on Palestinian issue and intervention of academic institutions and think tank and research centers like ours has become an important. And I really appreciate your support for us, your contribution to this foundation, and your presence at our events. So I would like to see you again. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
मोइन साहब हैं क्या? हम्माद? हम्माद,
अभी तो नजर नहीं आए।
आपका माइक क्यों नहीं काम कर रहा है?
हेलो,
आवाज ही नहीं आ रही आपकी। क्वेश्चन
अभी
एंड आंसर में भी आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही थी।
हाँ, मैं बहुत स्लो बोल रहा था। एक सेकंड।
ठीक है, कॉल करिए फिर।